right, hello and welcome to AWS Made Easy. Ask Us Anything live stream on your Wednesday morning reInvent coverage. We cover Stephen and Rahul. How are you doing today?
Hey everyone, doing very, very well. We've had quite the exciting day yesterday with so many new announcements and of course Adam Selipsky's keynote. So we have a lot to cover. We're going to try and do this as quickly as possible today, give you all the big highlights so that you can go follow up on those and quickly recap what we're going to do today.
Absolutely. Let's start with some of the day's announcements. Let's add this to stream. Well, first of all, your talk.
Correct.
So that is PRT 086. We've been talking about that. I'll put that up on the screen one more time, nice and large. PRT 086, nonstop way to find AWS recommended savings. Really quick, you've been talking to people about CloudFix at the time. What's the reception been?
So it's actually been really great. I think managing costs and basically using your cloud resources efficiently has been top of mind for pretty much everyone that I've spoken to over the last 2 days here. So what I'm going to be doing in this talk is sharing all of our experiences about how we've managed costs, how we've kind of dealt with over the last 15 years, and what have some of our learnings been, so that everyone else in the community can benefit from it. So please come on over. This is on the Expo floor. In the Lightning Theater number 2, if I'm not mistaken. So
number one, sorry, and that's over at the Venetian.
Yes.
So if you're here in person, if not, we'll be covering it, and we'll be talking about it, putting lots of highlights on our channels. So watch for that.
Correct.
And then let's talk about the other things that are happening today. Just after this, we've got Swami Shivasubramanian's talk, 8:30.
And this is all about the ML and AI announcements. So actually really looking forward to some of the new things that they're going to be doing over there. That is an entire huge space in itself within the AWS services ecosystem. So please stay tuned. And
I imagine if it's anything like some of today's announcements, we're going to see ML layers being inserted into lots of other products.
Correct. And I think that whole ecosystem of ML services has gotten pretty complex. So I would be very interested in seeing how they're simplifying it. I think they are going to try and make it easier for customers to onboard, manage their pipelines, manage their workflows in a lot more simple manner. So I know that there should be a bunch of announcements coming in from SageMaker Canvas team around there was going to be talk about the new chips to help with both training and inferences. There are going to be a bunch of announcements, hopefully around workflow management, simplifying it further. So looking forward to that conversation. Excellent. Keynote.
And then, so there's 8:30 a.m. That'd be 2 hours to keynote, 5:35 p.m. So you've got some time in between. So if you're here in person, wanted you to introduce you to my colleague Jackson over at the ARIA CloudFix booth.
The main takeaway that people have been getting from this booth? Yeah, I think being able to see CloudFix in their own accounts, getting that savings reports, it's easy. Everything becomes easier when you can see it in your own environment. So that's been the takeaway. Awesome. Well, come visit Jackson and the other friendly faces at the ARIA CloudFix booth. Let's help you save some money. All right, thanks, Jackson. Thanks.
All right, Jackson is a very friendly guy. They're all friendly. Go and visit them. Talk about having your account scanned, seeing the savings, the very simple savings you identify. So go visit Jackson and our other colleagues over at the ARIA CloudFix booth that's over at the Expo, just around the corner from Deep Racer. So race on over. All right, other cool announcement. We are on Spotify, the AWS Made Easy. Ask Us Anything. We've got this is episode 28. We've got 1 through 27 up here. And also your other podcast, AWS Insiders. So I'll put all these links into the show notes, into the chat as we go along.
Yeah, we are actually doing one podcast of AWS Insiders every day as well. So please go check it out. On Monday, we had Brad Smith, the VP at AMD, some very interesting stuff coming out from AMD. We had that discussion on Monday. And then yesterday, we had J.R. Stormont and Joe Daly from the FinOps Foundation. We've had some really great conversations with them. We hosted the FinOps Roundtable on Monday as well. Amazing discussion with all the practitioners over here. It was really, really awesome. So we've covered some of that in our podcast, AWS Insiders. So please subscribe and listen to it. We would love your thoughts and comments.
Awesome. We just dropped the link in all the chats. So subscribe, have a listen as you're running around from place to place. Have a listen. It's really good, engaging content. So hope you enjoy it. All right.
Great.
Well, that being said, let's jump into our first announcement from one of our first announcements we want to cover from Adam Slipsky's keynote on OpenSearch serverless. Here it comes. All right, and before we jump into it, we got some feedback yesterday that the transition audio was a bit loud. So we take your feedback very seriously into account. We are here for you. And so I wrote some FFmpeg scripts to change the audio on all our transitions. As I said, we've got lots of automations. I didn't have time to fully automate it, but I've got that tested now. And then in future ones, it'll be automated to tone down that volume so you don't get your ears blasted. So thank you for that feedback. We listen and really appreciate it.
Yeah,
So
once
thank
we're
you.
done with here, we should probably do a small section or a small segment on one of our shows about how we actually coordinated and did this setup, which is live, all the troubles and things that we went through to kind of bring this to you all live. So
Well,
once
and then
again, thanks a lot.
it's actually very fitting because next week we've got the guys from ShotStack,
Correct.
so that'll be really fun. So that's and they're a big part of how we use ShotStack to generate all these transitions. So we'll talk about that next week.
Perfect.
All right.
So
OpenSearch
this is
serverless.
Amazon OpenSearch serverless. Okay. So this was an interesting announcement. I think from AWS's standpoint, they're trying to make sure that the entire ecosystem of BI and analytics solutions, ranging from your data, which is all in Aurora and Redshift and so on, to Athena, and then over to QuickSight, as well as now OpenSearch. That's your entire ecosystem of all the BI tools that you need. For that, everything is serverless. Now, of course, serverless is a hugely overloaded term at this point. But nevertheless, they're trying to make it easier for you to consume this without really having to worry about scaling or trying to have to tweak it and manage it yourself.
Well, it's really, really exciting, the idea of serverless. But then I think this is looking at some of the reception from the community. I think you're not the only one with that read on things. This is actually a really good take from Ben Kehoe saying, serverless in this case means auto scaling.
Right.
So there's minimum of 4. So auto scaling Elasticsearch is really cool. Or OpenSearch, excuse me. That's really cool to do that. That was definitely just learning how to set that up myself. It was a lot of brittle work, a lot of decisions right at the beginning, and now you don't have to do that.
Correct. And I think the way AWS looks at it is it's serverless V1 and then serverless V2. What serverless V1 did was just basic auto scaling, and then serverless V2 became, they defined these compute units, whether it was Aurora compute unit or otherwise, and they start scaling that up and down. My only issue with these auto scaling is that there is still a minimum deployment requirement that you have. I think Neptune was the last one that moved to serverless V2. But that minimum requirement is something that kind of bothers me a little bit. I mean, if it is truly serverless, it should be able to scale down to 0.
So I think this is what we're hearing from the serverless community.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Yeah,
I think that's very apt. So yeah, take the word serverless with a little pinch of salt or a grain of salt, and read up for yourself about exactly what it means for your scenario and your use case. It isn't as serverless as you think it is.
So it's serverless in the sense that you're auto scaling, but it's not serverless in that it scales to 0.
Correct.
I think maybe their thinking is, well, a lot of it scales to a very small number, but not small enough that as a solo developer you'd play with this and leave it running. That would still be $700 a month or so. So it's not scaled to 0.
Correct.
All right. Well, let's talk about another 0 technology, 0 ETL. That was a big theme of Adam's keynote yesterday. So let's start with the Redshift and Apache Spark integration. Here it comes.
Okay, so
I put this up on the board. Sorry about that. There we go. All right.
Okay, so this one is very interesting. So 0 ETL, I think, is a great vision that was set up. ETL is a big pain point for pretty much anyone who does anything with data. So it's great that they've kind of made this a mission, and you'll see a whole lot of service announcements come up with all of these integrations that make all of this, ETL tasks and jobs super simple. Of course, you need all of your data to be in S3 or Aurora or Redshift for this to happen. But once you get it there, all the other stuff should actually start becoming way easier. So the first of many announcements to come was Amazon Redshift integration with Apache Spark. So Apache Spark, typically you'd use it only with things like Glue, and as you're defining all your ETL stuff, now you can literally use the same queries and stuff directly with Redshift. So that integration is pretty awesome. And it should make the life of most, data analysts way easier. You don't have to start, massaging and trying to figure out, take the data out of S3 and Glue and S3 and Redshift and whatever. Instead, you can directly query into Redshift and get whatever you need. So the transformations should be way simpler.
Yeah. I mean, the social media reaction to this is that would have saved so much time. And not just time, but this consistency, right? Because every time you take a copy of a data and move it to somewhere else, and it's easy to remember, oh yeah, I did change that date format along the way, or I did add this extra column, or I did do this extra join, and all of a sudden you've got versions floating around. And so that's really dangerous. This idea of ETL, zero ETL, where in the background they're all consistent with each other. That's really neat. So we can build Spark applications, and the idea is, okay, I'm targeting Spark. My data is in Redshift, but I don't have to think about how to get that data. I'll just, once the data is in Redshift, then you can target Spark.
Correct.
You don't have to build some.
And it just feels very inefficient moving data from here to there, and doing transformations on the way. Maintaining consistency, like you said, is I think probably the biggest challenge.
And it's amazing when I was doing data science work. Okay, 99% of my work is more data plumbing than data science, and so this simplifies that. So if you're a data scientist who's finding yourself doing a lot of ETL type work, hopefully this frees your time back up to go look at the things that you are more in the data science world, and not the well, I suppose this is more data engineering now that have become separate disciplines, but still good to not have to do this ETL work.
Great. All right. And then we had one more announcement here in the same theme, correct?
Yes, this is Aurora and Redshift.
Okay, this one is pretty exciting too, because now all of your data that is in Aurora can become columnar in Redshift. I still have to figure out the mechanics of this as to how you specify flattening of all those relational tables. But from what I understand from a cursory study yesterday, you've got all of your relational data sitting in Aurora, with all of it, foreign key dependencies, all of those described, and you should be able to specify a set of tables that you want to show up in Redshift, and that automatic plumbing, takes care of all of that for you.
This is interesting. So with near real-time access to transactional data, so I was thinking about the same thing. What's the mechanism? Is it a copy underneath, or is this essentially a view, to use SQL terminology? But this is a copy and a move, because it's not a one-to-one bijection, but it's near real time.
Yeah, and I think they leverage a lot of the underlying storage layer. So Aurora separates out the compute and storage, right? And it's all kind of an S3 based storage. They use the same technology under the hood. So replicating a lot of this data in a like literally they can take blocks and kind of replicate it as quickly as possible. And they're probably using the same mechanism. So whatever they use in Aurora to basically replicate across the different S3 or the storage blocks, they're probably just adding a few more to replicate into Redshift as well. So you should get near real-time, consistency of all those copies, and it's available in Redshift for you. So I think that's going to be a big boost to the analytics pipelines. Like if you can provide real-time analytics and dashboards for a lot of use cases, that is really, really critical.
This is going to save people a lot of time. This is and look at the okay. So this is brand new. It is in preview mode.
Yep.
MySQL 3, Aurora MySQL 3 with SQL 8 compatibility only in US East. So US East 1.
Yeah.
So exciting. If that's where your data is, get started using that, sign up for the preview, and then otherwise I'm sure it'll be rolled out fairly quickly.
Correct.
All right, let's stick on the data topic. For one more, we've got Data Zone. and there hasn't even been an official article about it yet. But it was mentioned in Adam Slipsky's keynote.
Right. My first thought about Data Zone was, oh, this looks like data exchange for your existing corporate. I don't know how many of you remember data exchange as a service. It's kind of had zero mentions or announcements in quite a while. I think it's been like a year and a half or 2 years where I've seen any mention of data exchange. But data exchange was a service where different publishers could basically publish all of their data. But Data Zone looks like something similar, but for your own organization, and you can create these data catalogs and really provide a seamless way of providing very controlled access to stakeholders who need access to the data, but also at the same time manage all of your data catalog in a very systematic manner.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And having worked at, as one example, in healthcare IT, right? So even when you're in there, there's a lot of different data that's in different silos. Someone has access to the prescriptions, but another group has access to billing, and you're not if you're meant to join those data, it's
Right.
a big conversation with stakeholders. And so looking at Data Zone, it's a way of, I guess, putting data into a place where you can quantify that balance. I wanted to put this quote up on the screen from Adam Slipsky. I thought this was really good. Too much control in your data, it gets locked in silos, and this thing comes up called shadow IT, where someone says, okay, fine, it's too difficult to interact with the real stakeholders, so I'm going to create a shadow copy, and that's really, really risky. And so it seems like it's addressing some real needs here.
Correct.
Of being able to avoid the shadow IT, being able to make it the data where it's easy enough to access, that it's useful, but it's secure enough so that you don't have those data security is number one. But you also have to make it be useful. Now, not everyone can have that Mission Impossible with the computer in the clean room and have to, Tom Cruise have to rappel in to access the data. But not all of us have that. So it is a trade-off. All right.
Okay.
Anything else to say about Data Zone?
No, I think this one is pretty straightforward, and I think it's going to be pretty widely used across organizations. So
we're looking forward to
neat.
more documentation on that. I think just an announcement at the moment. So yeah, looking forward to more official word on that. But all right, let's switch over to Contact Lens for Amazon Connect.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Contact Lens for Amazon Connect. Now provides conversational analytics for chat. Now we're big fans of Connect. they keep giving us reason to be even more. This is really interesting. So with conversational analytics, this is powered by the machine learning platform. We're excited to hear more about that today. So understanding sentiment and agent and chatbot conversations.
Correct. In fact, just yesterday we covered the other announcement about how you can take transcribed data and get conversational analytics about all of your video calls and chats and things like that. This is particularly addressed towards AWS Connect, where your agents are talking to customers, they're on calls. You should be able to take all of that data and get your conversational analytics. So sentiment, understanding what entities people are talking about. In fact, one of the amazing things about this is you can actually get sentiment about a particular entity that is being talked about. When I say entity, it could be your product, it could be the agent or whatever. So the amazing thing about this conversational AI is that it allows you to, or conversational analytics, sorry, is that it allows you to identify entities as well as the sentiment and other characteristics or attributes associated with those entities. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how people actually use it to implement change within their organizations.
And then plus all the data redaction. That's really cool that they can do that as well. That way you can have transcripts that are safe. Because sometimes in transcripts you say your address, your credit card, things that you wouldn't want floating around the organization, and not having to build that yourself. It's just right in the pipeline. That's exciting. And then thinking also about when you're interacting with a chatbot, you're typically not particularly verbose.
Yes.
So it's exciting that I'm sure they've had a long time to train these models. So even you're not writing an essay in the chatbot. It's as quick as you can. So it's really neat to see that they can get this much understanding from relatively brief conversations. I know I'm not particularly long-winded with my chatbots. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, this is QuickSight Q. All right, Amazon QuickSight Q now. There's more announcements coming. We've got our work cut out for us. Amazon QuickSight Q now supports automated data preparation. This is really, really neat. This is all the time you spend when you have a column full of natural language. It's okay, now I got to do TF, IDF, or whatever it is on these things.
Correct.
But now being able to augment your text data with higher order fields, that's going to be really useful.
Correct. I think there are two things here. So far with Q, you've actually had to prepare a lot of the data and make sure that you are providing enough queues as in CUES to the service queue for it to be able to understand and interpret what your question really is, and then be able to dive into the data to get you the appropriate analytics. This, I think, simplifies that dramatically. You can auto discover a lot of the stuff in there. I think one of the other announcements that they added to this was in the keynote was Q is now able to answer the why kind of questions, like why did something happen, and you can ask of that right in the Q search bar. So that is really exciting because getting into the analytics about why something happened is one of the most common use cases that you see with QuickSight dashboards and general BI solutions. So I'm very excited to try this out and see how this works. So we will keep you posted, and we'll bring more to you as we learn more ourselves.
And yeah, being able the whole big picture of QuickSight Q, being able to add natural language, just being able to use natural language more and more and more. It's such a exciting thing, right? We don't think in SQL queries, we don't think in queries, we think in questions, and being able to have that convergence where we can actually use the way we think, being able to be a lot closer. I guess it's bringing our questions closer to the data. So that's really exciting.
Yep.
All right. Next, let's bring up the next topic, which is about that. We are going to VPC Lattice.
Okay, VPC Lattice. I'm actually really confused about this one. This one is in preview. It is for service-to-service communication, making it really simple. My biggest confusion is how is this any different from the private link solution?
Yes.
So I couldn't make out much about how this is different. So if we were doing ratings today, I'd definitely add this to Complexify because it doesn't really segregate. It doesn't say this is where you would use,
that's
private
a
link.
We've been. I know our time is somewhat limited today, so we do Complexify on this. And yeah, it's interesting. And the other thing that I think is really interesting is it's only available in US West 2, in Oregon.
Yeah, but I guess this is preview, so it's not surprising because they pick one region where they want to roll something out, and then they'll expand from there. But my biggest concern really is that I don't understand where I would use this versus private link. So if anyone has any answers, any suggestions, please feel free to post in the comments. But
I'll put the link in the chat. This is the announcement blog. Let's see, I'll put that right there. So yeah, have a read of that. We're really interested to know. I mean, hopefully this jumps out at you as something that says, okay, I can do this in VPC Lattice that I couldn't do in private link. I wonder what exactly that is. I haven't used private link that much, so I'm not sure.
No, from everything that I read, I mean, it just seems very, very similar. Like these are the things we started using private link to basically connect services to services across VPCs and make it kind of easier for that communication to happen. But yeah, this is confusing to me.
Well, hopefully, once we understand it, it'll give. I mean, I hope.
Hopefully, we can bring you some clarity on it, or urge the AWS team to kind of bring some clarity. But yeah,
I've been using SAM's serverless connectors a lot, and this kind of reminds me of anything that simplifies being able to make two things talk to each other without getting deep into the weeds of VPC and IAM. That's exciting. So hopefully, this is a net simplicity once we understand exactly what it is and what it's doing.
Correct.
All right. Well, let's switch gears again to talk about Connect forecasting. I'll pull up our transition here. Connect forecasting. All right, Connect forecasting, capacity planning, and scheduling now generally available. So again, Connect, this is cool. So Connect forecasting. So what are we forecasting here? What are we?
So I think
forecasting for contact centers, but what are we predicting?
Yeah, I think this is mostly around capacity planning, right? I mean, when you're running a contact center, you want to be able to forecast how many calls are going to come in at a particular time interval, so that you can staff appropriately. You can make sure that you have all the right resources to be able to address those queues quickly. You don't want your customers waiting, for your support agents to be able to address issues. So to be able to do that really well and efficiently, forecasting, which is literally the number one job of anyone running support or anyone running, customer contact center, this just makes life easy. You have some of the best, machine learning models that have been running, or that have been created with an incredible amount of data. So I assume that the accuracy of this is going to be pretty darn good.
Now, I wonder if is it mostly a time series question, right? So if you think about think about all the crazy videos I've seen, if you are buying a turkey deep fryer the week before Thanksgiving, you're going to get a lot of customer support calls on that particular SKU. I wonder, so is it time based, or are you able to augment this with additional data on your operation as a whole, or is this mostly around time and saying, okay, at this particular time window is when we get a surge of calls, whether it's in the morning or in the evening, depending on the type of product it is?
I think it's primarily time series data, but within the time series data, there are a whole lot of other attributes. So whatever your contact center, AWS Connect has. So for example, I'm pretty sure that it would be able to look at, conversations. It'll be able to look at entities, dimensions of entities, and so on. All of those would basically be other attributes or other vectors within that time series data for the machine learning model to be able to predict. I don't think it is just a simple, hey, here's the time series data, here's the number of calls that are coming in. Maybe it is that, but my guess would be that it would have a lot more attributes it could look into.
Looking at there's a lot of neat details here. So real-time schedule updates, additional rest breaks, and I really like this one. I think we can give this a simplifies right now. With one check of a box, you can try it without any extra effort, cost, or time. All right, well, let's just throw a simplifies on there.
Yeah, I love the Connect team. I think they have taken so many of these services and capabilities within the AWS ecosystem. And if you followed them over the last year, literally every week there's an announcement from the Connect team where they have added and simplified the use of one of these services in the context of a contact center operation.
Yeah, I think it's really, this is an example of just drilling down and continually refining exactly how to use a very particular, well-defined problem.
Yep.
With lots of neat detail and richness to it. I wouldn't, if I was to start a call center, I wouldn't have any other choice.
Agreed.
Okay. So we simplify. Should we give that a rating? I think we can give that a...
Yeah, I think we can do this. I think we just did.
We just simplified. We didn't give it a clouds, but that's...
Yeah. Oh, but are we still on VPC?
Oh,
no.
Sorry about that. I closed the tab. There we go. Connect forecasting.
Okay. Great.
All right. Let's switch gears. Oh, I've put the Connect forecasting. Yep. Oh, let me put this in the chat, and then we're going to switch gears one last time. Or no, we're going to switch gears to the Inf2 instance type. I think.
Great.
Here we go. Inf2. All right, let's open up the Inf2 article. Inf2, this is an exciting, this is the Inferentia, this is Amazon Silicon. I think the really interesting thing is the jump in the performance. So just highlighting this one, you see things like 3x higher compute, 4x throughput, and 10x latency. That's impressive that there was that much room for improvement at this point. So 10x, that's really, really neat. So if you see your predictions in the apps that you're using get a lot faster.
Correct. So this is actually very exciting in terms of at least, so I'm going to evaluate this from two different lenses.
Okay.
The first one is from the lens of just pure engineering. And this is pretty awesome. So they were able to squeeze out so much more performance and lower latencies out of these processes. But the other lens that I have is literally as a practitioner. Now, if I go to the AWS console and look at 600 different instance types, like I am going to feel so incredibly overwhelmed and lost. I wouldn't how do you compare and do a contrast between 600 instances? Like if there were 600 vehicles that showed up in your search for a new car, okay, and you wanted to do a compare, like how would you do it? Like it just baffles my mind.
So what do you think the future is for instance selection? How do you visualize this? Do you think at some point there'll be 1,000 or 5,000? Are we going to look back and say, wow, 600, they were so little? Or
so here's my
how are they
thought.
going to help us figure this out?
Last year they were at 450. Today they're at 600. And I think I actually think that they need either a decision tree map that makes it really simple to navigate all of this and get you to one answer very, very quickly. Alternatively, you just say what you want.
So in terms of constraints, I want something that can do this latency, and it will solve a constrained optimization problem for you and hand you back an instance type.
Correct. And I think now that I think about it, that is a decision tree as well. So it just asks you a few questions and it gets you the right instance type. So that is a decision. I think that's the way to go about it. It's the table form in which they present this data. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but there was a time that I used to pull out JSONs to help you. Like you cannot use a console to do any kind of comparison or figure out what the right instance type is for you. So the page itself actually pulls in a JSON. It was a few megabytes of JSON just a year or so ago. I am guessing that right now it's going to take you forever to kind of load up that page or load up the JSON just to get all the details about all the instance types, the pricing associated with them, and so on. It's a nightmare, and I really wish they'd simplify it.
All right. Well, hopefully we see something in the future that will do some guidance, some higher level service, maybe some machine learning model on top of instance selection.
Compute optimizer.
That would be.
I would think the compute optimizer would be the one that would help you pick the right instance type for the kind of workload you have.
It is really neat reading about the capability of this instance type. 384 gigabytes accelerator memory, 9.8 terabytes per second.
That is insane. I mean, the 9.8 terabytes per second bandwidth just is mind blowing. So from an engineering standpoint, this is absolutely stunning. So I'm really glad, and I'm very excited for this team for having brought about this 2.3 petaflops of DL performance. This is all incredible. So I am very excited from an engineering standpoint, just as a consumer who has to make these choices.
This may be the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of how many instances, or maybe that we can reserve that one for our next one. But it's neat thinking about these models. And last comment I'll say on this is when you see these generative art models, and so have you seen these ones where you can look at a painting and then you can tell it zoom out and generate what you think what the model thinks might be there,
right?
If this painting was bigger. And these generative models, these are these ones that are taking up these 100 billion parameter plus, right? To ingest the entire art world and to be able to derive some context from this little painting and then say, what if it was a bigger painting?
Yeah,
I think it's really neat what we're seeing these days. All right, let's talk about yet another instance type. I think we're very excited. We have more to choose from. All right, so we've got the HPC 6ID. I think this is a 6-character. Do we have a 7-character instance type yet?
No, yesterday we had the C7GN. So no, I don't think we have 7 characters yet. But again, like I said, this is just getting to that point of ridiculousness in terms of naming. Like, how do you even remember HPC 6ID? And I know they have some, scheme like HPC is HPC, and then generation 6, and then I forgot what I is. Is that
ID,
for the?
Well, we've got Intel for I, when it's specifically Intel, but then ID is going to be.
These are all the very data-centric ones.
Is it Intel data-centric?
It's again, like I said, it's getting to the point of
and then G is Graviton. So, all right. Well, if you know the exact taxonomy, the naming structure, it was back in the good old days of M1 and T4. All right.
2 letters was still doable, and now we're getting into 6 letters. So you can imagine the complexity you have to deal with. Like, I wouldn't even know to look for HPC 6ID.
Well, they're going to have to change the icon if they get it any bigger. All right.
So
Let's look at the details of this one. So HPC 6ID are powered by 64 cores of third generation scalable Xeon. So huge clock speed, a terabyte of memory, 15 terabytes of NVMe. What would you use this
SSDs.
for?
I guess if you had to, if you needed really powerful machines on your EMR, and you were basically processing crazy amounts of data, that's where you would end up using this.
How does this compare to the 112x large instance for SAP that we talked about a couple of weeks ago?
I think that one was the HANA instances where they were very, very memory heavy. Like this is only 1 gig of RAM,
No.
but
This
has
is 1 terabyte of RAM.
Sorry, 1 TB of RAM. Those ones that we discussed were what 128 TB, if I'm not mistaken.
EC2 112 XL, is that the one?
I think so.
Oh, 12 terabytes. Okay.
No, I think there were ones that were more than 12 terabytes.
6, 9, 12. Okay, the 9 terabyte and 12 instances offer. Okay, so these are still far bigger.
They're way bigger, and this is for when you have to load literally all the data in memory. The other one with 1 TB of RAM, you just need more compute on it, and EMR use cases I think would be the perfect use scenarios for those.
Yeah, and then the most important on this one, it's the fast bandwidth, memory bandwidth bound, data intensive, high performance.
Correct.
So this is when you have one. This isn't for the embarrassingly parallel. This is for when you have a giant matrix where the actual the memory of the matrix is stored across multiple machines. So you're accessing an element that could be in the RAM of a different computer, a different physical computer. So you need that high bandwidth between them.
Exactly.
All right, we are out of time for today. We have the keynote starting soon. I think we should. All right. Well, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate your feedback, your attendance. We will be here tomorrow morning, 7:30, and then tomorrow evening for a wrap-up session.
Correct.
All right. Well, thanks again.
And we will bring you all the highlights from today's keynotes and all the announcements. We are still trying to cope with all of them, and we will hopefully bring you some insightful announcements.
And then we're looking forward to your talk. Good luck on that today, and we'll be covering that.
And look forward to seeing you all on the show floor. So don't forget to come and see us over there.
All right.
Then,
see you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Is your AWS public cloud bill growing? While most solutions focus on visibility, CloudFix saves you 10 to 20% on your AWS bill by finding and implementing AWS recommended fixes that are 100% safe. There's zero downtime and zero degradation in performance. We've helped organizations save millions of dollars across tens of thousands of AWS instances. Interested in seeing how much money you can save? Visit cloudfix.com to schedule a free assessment and see your yearly savings.